Okay, this screencast is going to begin with Hitler's invasion of the Soviet Union, also known as Operation Barbarossa. And this is where it all goes wrong for him. So, Hitler just felt that even though he had a non-aggression pact with Poland, that he could not trust Stalin to not attack him. I think he sees Stalin as a threat, since Stalin is not a very nice leader, and sees him as a, pretty powerful, so he'll always kind of be, on his back if Hitler doesn't just decide to try to take him out early and to make an enemy out of the Soviet Union. So Hitler will invade the Soviet Union. Not going to make Stalin happy, obviously, so things are going to go south with their relationship with this. And I think that, Stalin has some obvious advantages, and the Soviet Union is obviously pretty populated, pretty large. They have a large military, but there are some political weaknesses within Stalin's government, since, Russia and the Soviet Union is still relatively newly communist, been some government changes, leadership changes. So it's not necessarily like it's going to be easy for the Soviet Union to defeat Germany, even though the Soviet Union would be so hard to conquer because of its size. When Hitler invades, he actually is able to make some progress by pushing fairly far into the Soviet Union. And there are extremely heavy casualties on both sides. Germany will eventually make its way to the city of Stalingrad, which they were on their way to Moscow, but they make it to Stalingrad. And it's here where things are going to get really kind of held up and messy for Germany's army. It is so cold in the Soviet Union. It is just downright freezing. Freezing to the point that when you're at camp and you're trying to eat your food, if you didn't eat your food, it would freeze in a matter of seconds. People are starving to death. People are dying from frostbite. There's just a lot of illness with this super, super cold weather. And it's not like the Soviets are doing amazing. I mean, they're suffering too. There are heavy casualties on both sides. But this battle at Stalingrad is going to last for a really long time. And eventually, Hitler's just going to have to give up, because he's just realizing that the Soviets are not going to give in. They have a lot of resources. Even though he had made such heavy progress, he's not going to really make it any farther while still maintaining his war in the western part of Europe, so he has to turn his attention elsewhere eventually. So eventually he's going to give up, and Operation Barbarossa is the second operation to really greatly fail Hitler. Okay? And let me just say that, both sides lose a lot of casualties. I don't think anyone lost as many soldiers in World War II as the Soviet Union. So it's actually heavy, heavy casualties for the Soviets during this entire war, particularly in this battle, where I think in this one battle nearly 2 million lives were lost between both sides. That's just absolutely incredible. Okay. I also want to add that the immediate effect of Germany invading the Soviet Union is that the Soviet Union is going to ally itself with Great Britain. Alright, we're now going to look at the war in North Africa. The reason the war would be fought in Africa is because Africa was heavily colonized by Europe during World War II. So the countries are kind of fighting over and in the various, African nations they're controlling. You can actually look at the map on your screen and see the key of the blue is British controlled, and the kind of pink is the French controlled, and the green is the Italian controlled, etc. So you see some German controlled as well. So you see these countries, and what's going to happen is fighting's going to break out in North Africa. England wants to launch an attack in North Africa because England wants to use North Africa as a launching point for an attack on mainland Europe. If you look at this map, you notice that Italy is right above, really right across the sea from North Africa, Algeria, Libya, and if they can use North Africa as a launching point to attack Italy and then come into Germany from the south, that's what they feel would be easiest. And Winston Churchill even refers to Italy as the soft underbelly of Europe, kind of almost insulting it as like the weak spot in, right for the gut. And so before this North African venture happens, Italy will join an official alliance with Germany as well as Japan. And this alliance is called the Tripartite Pact. And you can read that on the screen if you want to know how to spell it. So the Tripartite Pact is an alliance between Italy, Germany, and Japan. They make this official alliance in September of 1940. I'll never ask you that date, but okay. And you may say, well, what does Japan have to do with any of this? Because they're not fighting in Europe. But the bottom line is that Japan is a good distraction, in Hitler's opinion, for the U.S., meaning that if the U.S. ever were to come involved in this war, we'd have to worry about the Japanese over the Pacific Ocean and the Germans over the Atlantic Ocean, so we'd have enemies on both sides, which is what Hitler would like, obviously, to have a level of distraction away from him. So that is why they're going to all agree to kind of form this alliance. All right. So now we'll kind of talk about one key battle that takes place kind of prior to U.S. involvement in North Africa, and this is at El Alamein. This is going to be between the British General Montgomery and his army and the German General Rommel. And the German army that's in North Africa at this point is called the Afrika Korps. And there's going to be two battles fought at El Alamein. Both are going to result in a victory for the Allies, and not the Axis, not the Germans. So the British side wins. These victories are kind of important for two reasons. We now have a launching point to kind of cross over the Mediterranean Sea into Italy to hit the main, Axis-controlled European countries, including Italy. And we also gains control of a body of water called the Suez Canal, which kind of comes and cuts through parts of the Middle East. It's crucial that we control that body of water to move supplies into our controlled areas of Africa. So it's a big victory then. Winston Churchill, of course, very proud of his British military, and now we're setting up to basically eventually launch an Italian invasion. But before we do that, the United States will get pulled into this war, and that is going to be the majority of what we talk about in class tomorrow. So please write down any questions you have, and I will see you all tomorrow. Have a good night.